Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about strong tech leads. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, is a strong tech lead with a quote-unquote my way or the highway attitude a challenge for a software engineering team? Yes. Yes, that's definitely a challenge. I would label that sort of software developer like it's usually a senior. It technically doesn't have to be a senior, but that sort of developer uh, is usually a very bad thing. It's a bad senior. That's what I call them. The reason why these are very bad people to have in a team is because the problem with having an individual who has seniority and doesn't really listen or consider other perspectives is that, well, that is pretty much the definition of a tyrant right there. And the problem with the tyrant is that one part with the problem for tyrant is that they crush people underneath them, which demotivates the rest of the team usually. So you would have to have a fairly extraordinarily emotionally resilient software team under such a person for it to sort of work. And there are people like that as well. You can actually get this to work. So that's one part of it, like the humanitarian perspective, if that makes sense. But then you have the other perspective, which is even more dangerous, and that is that sort of tyrant type of character creates a dynamic where, apart from intimidating people, he or she is actually going to be put in a position where they have to be correct about everything all the time. And everything becomes very much down to that they are working there, that their vision is being delivered, etc., etc. They don't actually spread their expertise or like their ownership of the project to the rest of the team usually, because unfortunately these sorts of people are usually very much more concerned with that things are done in their way rather than that they are done correctly. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, it's very simple. Because a my way or the highway type of person is usually the sort of individual who only thinks about their perspective, but lacks the ability to distinguish between good solutions and bad solutions. This is not always the case, and that's why I want to touch on this as well. Because the thing is, there is a sweet spot to how much a leader should listen to the people that person is leading. Because if you the other extreme is that the team lead doesn't have his or her own vision, or like they don't actually lead, they're just managing, and that is the worst thing that any person who's trying to achieve something could do. Managers are completely useless when it comes to delivering on vision. The reason being because as a manager your primary focus is not to get something to happen, usually in terms of like delivering on a vision or something like that. That is what a leader does. It's the difference between a politician or like a king who is managing a country versus a conqueror or someone who's actually leading from the front. The the difference between these two types of ways of operating as a leader is that it's very important that one understands the difference between these two, because if you have a manager or someone who is so concerned with what the team or like the people that are there leading is like what they're all about, that actually paralyzes all progress that is possible. I've seen this happen 100 times where the project literally dies from 1,000 bad ideas because there's no vision, there's no goal, there's no nothing, because you're sort of just crowdsourcing what the technical roadmap should look like. And that only works if you have extraordinarily gifted people. And that is far from the norm when you have a group of anyone. It's actually very difficult to create a team that is just composed of people with really great ideas. So like there's always a voice in every team that is slightly stronger or something of that nature, right? Just as there are always voices who will more readily follow than lead. And if you are the team lead or the tech lead, your job is primarily to deliver on the company goals. That is what your focus is, just as a general's first and foremost commitment is to deliver victories for the country in a war or whatever, right? It's the same principle, and that is not possible if the only way that leader can achieve any type of consensus or vision is by just asking all the soldiers or all the team members all the time, because frankly they need to be, I mean, if they're already a leader, this is sort of where, at least my opinion, if you have a team lead who does not have vision or anything like that, this is not the right person to be a team lead. They could be an engineering manager or something like that, because that is a very different type of role. A team lead or a tech lead should be an individual who has the seniority and vision to deliver good results. The team is a supporting structure towards that end goal, if that makes sense. The team lead should be the tip of the spear or the root node in the tree, and that is you should scale, if that makes sense. You scale that person, and the team gets the benefits of having such a person in charge. And ideally the team lead should work just as any other software developer. It should just be a person who has who's primarily focused on that all the software developers and the team itself is actually operating in an effective way. As I like to say, it should be basically a sergeant for a small group of soldiers. That is what you're looking for in a good tech lead. And as any sergeant will be able to tell you, sometimes it is best to just really listen to your guys or girls, or like the people who are in your platoon or whatever, right? Or in your squad. And sometimes you actually have to formulate an opinion and basically say, no, we're not going to have this discussion, we're going to go and do this thing. And knowing when to be assertive and say, this is the way we're doing it, and when to listen to your people, that is the key trademark of an effective leader, or an effective team lead, or any leader, I would say. It's one of the biggest things that they need to get right, in my opinion. So what I want you to take away from this is that yes, my way or the highway attitude type of software developer or tech lead or something like that is almost always a problem in most software teams, and it depends on the composition and so forth, because in some countries people are more sensitive than others, and in some cultures they're more sensitive than others, etc., etc. But usually if you're dealing with a team lead that is this way, they have a tendency, in my experience, to be a tyrant type of character, which is basically like they intimidate people into doing what they want, and they achieve pretty much everything they do through intimidation. And the problem with that is that works with some people, but it actually can crush the motivation and incentive for a lot of people. It's actually funny because I find that such a person has never ever been able to effectively they never understand the impact of that system and what it actually does to this incentive and motivation of the rest of the team. If you've ever been a team lead who's tried to get in a culture of Boy Scouting into your team, try to see how effective you are if you have this approach. Because if people are scared shitless of you, or worried that they're going to make a mistake in the pull request or whatever like that, you're never going to be able to get as much as possible out of your people. Because they're just going to be conditioned to listening to you and everything you say. And that means that if you're the top dog, congratulations, now you have a top-down approach to everything. And unless you are always on the mark, always the best person for the job, and always in every single situation where you need to have an opinion, nobody's going to be able to do anything, because you're conditioning everybody to just listen to whatever you have to say. The other extreme is that you don't have any leadership, which is basically the popular crowdsourcing strategy, where the problem with that is that you don't actually have leadership. You can't take a direction, and it's actually very often that you get these messy code bases and people who are rivaling and stuff like that. And that's why I tell people an effective good tech lead should be able to tell when it's time to just say, I know there's 100 ways of doing this, but we have to pick one way, and this is the way we're doing it. End of story. And in many cases, it's also that person has to understand when it's time to just say, you know what, I'm going to listen to my people. They seem to be the best source of source of information to make a good decision, because that is what a really good leader should be about: the end result. What is going to be the best decision, not who made the decision or who came up with the solution. Have a great day.